Oh yeah, everything gonna be alright this morning. Now when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I'd be the greatest man alive.
Good morning, one and all, and this is from the Fringes, and the opinions voiced on this show, they are our own opinions, and we're coming to you from Free FM 89. How wonderful. And before we get on to our topic today, which is the launching of a Black Ribbon and the Ministry of Men's Affairs down at the Beehive, talking to Peter Dunn. Peter Done Nothing.
Peter Done Nothing.
And all the interested fathers and men as part of the men's movement. We'll just talk a little bit about no funding to public schools. You were saying that this morning, Lance. How unfair.
Oh, yeah. I was reading a piece that was talking about how there's a lack of funding for education, blah, blah, blah. Well, there isn't actually a lack of funding for education. It's just that the government has taken the majority of the funding out of the public arena and put it into private schools. They're taking funding from public schools and giving it to private schools.
How can they do that? We should be educating everyone.
Well, if people want to go to a private school, the concept of that is you go to a private school if your parents have the money to pay for you to go to private school. Otherwise, you go to public school, which is government funded and doesn't cost you anything in theory.
Now, speaking of how the government centralise everything, even with the councils, and they control the councils, apparently McPherson brought out the fact that money's going into the infrastructure with the roading, but nothing's going into busing or whatever, and so he was upset over that. The money should go to the right focus.
It's not just there's two aspects to it. There's the money not going into buses and just public transport in general, just like trains and stuff like that. And a lot of this is to do with the fact that the government is giving funding incentives to roading, but they don't give any incentives for any other sort of transport. So they don't give incentives towards busing and things like this to not only expand routes, add buses, etc., but to bring the cost of using the buses down, so that people tend to use that. Because if it was cheaper, a lot more people would use the buses. If it was a little bit more efficient, it would be used a lot more instead of clogging up roads. But the government seems to think that what they should be doing is giving funding incentives to councils to add more and more and more roads. Which is it's quite pointless.
Basically, they're looking after the infrastructure, but not the social structure of society. Take care of roads and so forth.
What they're doing is they're adding more in a society where in a time when we're saying using immense amounts of fossil fuels is a bad idea. So therefore, one person driving around in a car all by themselves is inefficient and a waste of fossil fuels. We're at the same time discouraging the methods that avoid that situation, because how many of these people that are driving around by themselves would prefer to use a form of transport that wasn't that wasteful, but they got no option. They go to work at a given time. The cost of using the buses more than using their car maybe, or it's just that the times of the buses are so infrequent and unreliable, or there's not a bus route in the area they're going to, so they're forced to use a car.
Now,
the sooner
we have checks and balances in place and citizens-initiated referenda and binding local referenda, the better. Then the councils will be answerable to the people. Now, I'll be attending a Noho where we'll be discussing the Treaty of Waitangi, enshrining it into a constitution and interpreting it in the light of our organisation and a Bill of Rights. So, and I want to take my super sovereign man flag along, which is the Treaty of Independence. I don't know how they'll react to that. But however, you actually were talking about a shirt with the Declaration of Independence written on it. and our land. Now, that could be quite radical, Lance, because it is our land.
Yeah, because of some of the studies I've been doing, I've had to do a lot of reading on a number of areas. One big one has been the Declaration of Independence, and when you read just the first, there's two main articles. I think it's the first and the third. I think it is from memory. It was the first and the fourth, whatever. But the first one in particular has quite a big piece to do with declaring New Zealand to be our country, or the Maori chiefs' country, and also on top of that, down the bottom end of that article, it refers to it as our country. So it says, "We the chiefs, blah blah blah, our country," which are two key pieces of phraseology in there. And my idea was, I'd printed it up and put it up on Facebook. I'd created this shirt imagery that you could print out on a shirt, and I put it up on Facebook so that people could download it and then go and get it printed on a shirt if they wanted to, you see. And I'm just at the moment trying to find somewhere that's not too costly to print it up so that I can go and get my own one done, so I can wander around with the Article 1 of the Declaration of Independence on my shirt. And I might eventually take it back and get like Article 3 or 2 or something printed on the back. I don't know yet.
That's brilliant, because we need to highlight the sovereignty of the people, the tino rangateratanga, and that the land belongs, the Maoris are stewards of the land and the water, and it belongs to all of us. Now, a lot of people say, do we need the Maoris having total ownership of the land? Well, I'm all for Maoris controlling it and being stewards of the land, the kaitiakitanga, and selling it to some big corporate who's going to utilise it for his own ends and not allow anybody else to walk on the land. Or whatever the case may be.
I think with this, the big thing is educating people, and this is the idea of something like this. I thought, well, it's something I've been studying, and I think wearing it on a T-shirt is a good way to educate people as to what it is, because a lot of people know about the treaty. Very few people actually have ever read the treaty, but even less people are aware of the Declaration of Independence, and even less, again, have ever read it and understand what the Declaration is.
I would wear one of your shirts. That's good.
The Declaration of Independence is basically, it declares New Zealand to be a separate and sovereign state from anywhere else. Yeah. Right? And it was acknowledged by the biggest entity in existence at the time, which was the British Empire. They acknowledged that New Zealand was a separate country, etc., and so therefore the only way to take over the country, in theory, would be by agreement or by act of war. Right. And a lot of the aspects of the Declaration of Independence were actually ignored and pushed aside. For instance,
that's why I had the super sovereign flag. Sovereignty of the people.
In the declaration, it states about Maori chiefs meeting to lay down laws for the country once a year during autumn, etc., etc. Right.
Right.
Now, the first meeting of that was squashed by the British. They decided
those colonialists.
They decided that because there was a bit of an argument between a couple of chiefs, that it wasn't worth bringing them together to discuss these issues and lay down the laws. So they were controlling whether or not these people came together. Because and what ended up happening is, because no laws were laid down by the people who had the right to lay down those laws to start with, which was the Maori chiefs. Yep. The British then decided, it's a lawless country. We'll step in and we'll just bring all the laws over from England and put those in place, and that will be the law. And so the laws we have now are basically all the British laws. At no point has Maori had a say in putting in place a single law as per the Declaration of Independence. Right,
and this is why we need the Maori Land Act, the Turi Whenua, they actually call it. And so, speaking of the sovereignty of the people and the sovereignty of the chieftainship, we have a spiritual father in our midst here today, and that's Murray, who stands for men's rights. And hello there, Murray. How are you?
Hello, Jack. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
I'm well, thanks.
Okay, now I've just come back from a radical mission, down to the Beehive to talk to Peter Done Nothing about the suicide.
Peter Done Nothing.
To
Well,
talk to
that's
the
right.
feminists,
That's right.
and we went into the Women's Ministry of Affairs, and we said we're here to launch the Ministry of Men's Affairs. And actually, they locked us in the lift as we were coming up. So we had a major protest there, and we handed them the Ministry of Men's Affairs official document. We're setting up our own website, and the initiating of Black Ribbon Day. Now, it's got the Black Ribbon Campaign New Zealand Spring. We're running this for 3 months in conjunction with White Ribbon. Show you care about men. Okay, gentlemen and ladies out there, stand by your men. And you need to show you care about men by purchasing a big black ribbon. Okay, and this is highlighting, promoting men's rights and gender equality, because at the moment we're not equal, are we, Murray?
No, definitely not, Jack. The woman put in a claim to the cops. Well, the first thing the cops hear is the woman's story, not the men's at all.
Right.
And yet they could outdo the men. They flaunt themselves in front of the men, and the men get the blame.
Yeah, and
Get the
also,
blame for it.
and also there's some controversy about the slut walk, where women can dress as they like, they can turn the men on, and then they blame men if men come on to them.
That's right, exactly, Jack.
It's all
Exactly.
one-sided. Now,
Yeah.
I'll read out some of these points. Did you know men have no ministry to promote their rights? Men die earlier than women. Men are sexually harassed and reproductively exploited. That's where men become sperm donors.
That's right, Jack.
Men are ruined by property law extortion. That means the woman, she'll go for not only custody but claim half the house. As soon as she's lived with the guy for 2 years, he's out of the picture. You know, and the law is skewed against the man.
That's right.
And this is why we had the protest outside Family Court in Rotorua, and that was father's scapegoating treatment. And I came from an interview with TV, Rotorua, and I was on the news last night at 6:30, which was really good. Men are victims of physical violence, particularly head injury. Male teachers are threatened in education. Men are discouraged from associating with children. Now, you can't even say hello to a young person, a little child of 5 or whatever, and you're branded as being a paedophile. And so everything's skewed against the man today in our society. And this is why we've started up Black Ribbon. And if you can ring me at 078592939 and get your black ribbon. So, Murray, before you leave today, you're going to have your black ribbon, okay, which represents non-violence towards men and the persecution and alienation of men by society.
Yes.
And how we need to educate people to show they care about men. And, of course, men commit suicide 4 times the rate of females. Men are expected to accept less and not complain. Do you find that? You're not supposed to
Yes,
complain?
I do, Jack.
You're supposed to be
I
a
put
dummy
lot of
and
it-
have a gag upon your mouth
Yeah.
and not say anything when you are mistreated.
I put a lot of it down to intimidation or emotional blackmail.
Emotional blackmail.
Yes.
Okay.
They
now,
make demands on you, and when you do not deliver, they take off.
Now, apparently, the suicide statistics came out the other night, and Casper was on TV, and they had this skateboard of a young person there, and it's the same rate as per usual. I think it's 547, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's dropped by a fraction. It's actually technically it's come down a small amount. It's just that the figures have shifted as to who's actually committing the suicide, and it's moved more in the direction of youth and Māori men.
Yeah.
And also there's been an increase, I read the other day, I can't remember where I read it. I read it in passing and meant to make a note, of children. I mean, like under
9-year-old.
yeah,
Yeah,
9,
hanging
10-year-olds.
himself or whatever.
Yeah.
And they said it went up from 57 amongst the youth from, say, 9 to 25 up to 80 a year, which is a significant increase. It says that the young ones, there's no models for them. And, of course, like they're getting involved in alcohol or break up relationships. Especially
when the overall figures have actually dropped, yet that particular sector has gone up such a large amount.
Yeah.
That's quite shocking, because you could understand if the total figures had gone up and that had gone up by a large amount, that would have been bad enough. But if the total figures have actually moved downwards slightly, yet that one sector has gone up, that means there's been a massive shift from the middle age group around the 30s, 40s towards the youth.
Now, I did find it a bit disheartening, because I was interviewed by TV3, and they said to me, what do you think about transvestites committing suicide and about women taking their lives? And I said, well, I'm against transvestite taking their lives, but do you realise it's mainstream men who are committing suicide? 8 per week, 2 fathers, and 350 males a year. Now, what the system does, it gets us off the right focus. It says, suicides are about homosexuals and transvestites committing suicide, or about women taking their lives. Now, I'm for gender equality, but you need to face the fact that it's men, normal males, who are taking their lives. 8 a week, 350 a year, and transvestites might constitute, say, 2% of that. So isn't this an attack on masculinity, Murray?
Yes.
It's a vicious attack.
I think of a saying, women are from Venus, men are from Mars. Power to the men. Give the power back to the men.
Yeah, we've got to empower men again, and Black Ribbon is going to do this with men's rights and gender equality. And did you realise that over in Australia, the lone fathers in Australia have received a government award? They have been honoured as legends in Australia. So Australia's 10 years ahead of us. They support their fathers and their men. Over in New Zealand, we let the males commit suicide because we haven't got a Ministry of Men's Affairs to represent masculinity, father mentoring, and a good male role models within the community.
But on another note, Jack, there's no respect, no consideration these days for the older people. They tend to be past their use-by date.
Yeah.
And nobody will take any notice of them.
So be careful,
the youngsters,
say that we're getting older.
Yeah.
You're the old one, Granddad.
Yeah.
So that's right. We tend to put down the older ones and say, well, we can no longer use them in society. But really, they have the wisdom of the years. They've been through the experience.
And the experience,
and they're the best
Jack. Exactly.
mentors for the children, aren't they, Murray?
Yes. The kaumatua or whatever. Yes.
Okay.
Or karu.
Okay, power to the people, and that shirt you're bringing out, Lance, is wonderful, our flag, but you need to have the super sovereign on it as well, acknowledging the rights of all people, enshrining the treaty into a constitution, so we can use it politically to represent where the real people of this nation are coming from, instead of the corporates, instead of being sold out to national, the right-wingers, the capitalists, and the fascists of the country.
And conglomerates. Yes.
And our friend Murray here, he's talking about healing the issues, lack of respect for elderly people, and men's rights, and also you've got the church here too. What did you mean by that, Murray? Does the church need to wake up to what's really coming down on society, or what?
Probably, in a way, yes. I've been in the church for quite a number of years, since my father took me to church. Yes.
And the father's heart for father's sons and daughter, you as a son of God, do you ever feel discriminated against in the church?
Not so much these days, Jack. I would tend perhaps to think Hamilton was rather conservative for years.
Yep. Okay, and also we've had 4 people on this committee with the Ministry of Men's Affairs. We have a father's rights person, myself, a suicide prevention, 2 psychologists, and also a doctor by the name of Viv Roberts, who almost took his life. he put together a teaching on suicide statistics, and he was awarded by the United Nations over in Italy. They gave him an award for his suicide statistics in New Zealand concerning the male suicide rate and initiatives and what needs to be done for men in this country. And also, when I was on TV, Central TV, that'll probably be appearing 3 other times, I talked about the need for initiatives like buddy support, like grief counsellors at the coalface. And really, it's about facing the real ones, the oppression and suppression of males, there being no constitution in place to represent a Bill of Rights and men's rights in this country. So the Ministry of Men's Affairs was started up to address the need and the attack on males today. It's gendercide today, with 8 males committing suicide every week. The organisations being against men and against fathers and allowing males to commit suicide and turning a blind eye towards that, which is a real travesty. You know, I feel discriminated against as a male within my society, and it's high time that was changed. And you know, in art we emphasise pretty art, don't we? Beautiful
That's
classical pictures, but we turn a blind eye to facing the real ones, like the blood shed by those who commit suicide.
No, you're right, Jack. We need support at the coalface,
We need support,
which we're not getting. That people are falling through the cracks.
People are falling through the cracks. Where are the grief counsellors for men? Where are the empowerment programs to help men change? Instead of putting them into prison and rehabilitating the men, we just use them as scapegoats. Oh, he's a paedophile. Oh, he's a violent person.
Well,
you know what I mean?
it's a laugh, Jack. Rehabilitation in the prisons.
In the prison.
Well, it's a joke.
So you might like to get your ribbon, Stand By a Man, an initiative of the Ministry of Men's Affairs. They were going to call it MOMA, which is Ministry of Men's Affairs, but I said no, Mama Dada is the mantra. It needs to become Mo-Mans. So it's based on gender equality, woman and man. We love the woman, we love feminine, but we're against the male-bashing feminists of society. They've had their way for too long. They are stripping men of all their assets, of all their rights, and they've done nothing about the masculine condition in this country and men taking their lives. And even in family court, it just becomes a fiasco, a money grab for all the lawyers, and splitting the family, a lawyer for the mother, a lawyer for the father, a lawyer for the child, and basically ripping the heart out of the family and charging the man $30,000 for lawyer's fees or whatever. Totally wrong. Totally wrong.
Yeah.
It is bizarre. And yet over in Australia, they're honouring men and fathers with awards. They have lines for dads in trouble. They listen. They practice non-discrimination against the male and fathers. So we need to get behind Black Ribbon. And it highlights also the need to face the real ones, the oppression that's going on in our society. And it also typifies the Elijah Moses campaign in Revelation chapter 11, where the 2 witnesses dress in sackcloth and ashes. And that black colour represents sackcloth. We're in mourning. We're in grief. You know, white ribbon, while it's good, but it highlights the gay side, the lovely side to life. But it turns a blind eye to tragedy and what's really going on at the bottom of the rung, with fathers and males taking their lives, and the tragedy that's going on in their country. They want to sweep it underneath the carpet.
That's right. That's right. I texted a woman friend the other day, and I said, show you a little bit of araha towards Koru.
Yeah.
Because they call me Koru.
Oh, that's good. So you're acknowledged by a lot of Maori people. That's good.
Yeah.
As the rangatira and respected for your experience.
And where there is anger, let there be love.
Where there is anger.
From St. Francis of Assisi prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just want to claim back our power. We're not saying dislike the woman or don't approve of white women. We approve of it, but we want gender equality, heart equity. So we acknowledge both sexes and we equalise things. Not that the woman has the right all the time and men get beaten up all the time.
What about this point of them bringing Te Reo back into schools?
Well, I'm actually for Maori and non-Maori speaking the language Maori.
Yeah.
Because I think the Maori sovereignty and Treaty of Waitangi and Treaty of Independence, that's the only thing we've got to hang on to when it comes to the voice of the people, to the rights of all New Zealanders. Isn't that right, Lance?
Yeah, and it differentiates us from other countries. Never mind that it's the first language of the country. You take Germany, most of Europe.
Yep.
Kids are taught 2 or 3 languages at school all the way through. You take a friend of mine's from Hong Kong. They're taught Chinese.
Yeah.
Often they also taught a localized version of Chinese
Yeah.
and English at the same time.
So the two traditional languages of New Zealand are English and Maori.
Yeah.
And we should encourage Maori and non-Maori to speak
A lot
the
of
language.
Kiwis say, but it ruins the education to teach kids 2 languages at the same time. Yet there is proof in most of Asia and most of Europe that teaching kids 2 or 3 languages at primary school level
Yep.
and entry school level doesn't harm their education. In fact, it makes it better.
Right. So if we acknowledge Maori in this country and the Treaty of Waitangi, we'll be better off because it'll be the kaitiakitanga. They'll look after the land and look after our interests as the tino rangatira of the country. And also, minitanga mō tānei. So the Ministry of Men's Affairs also relates to the Maori tānei, and especially since we've got 60 Maori tānei unfortunately taking their lives. So we need to represent, our portfolio needs to represent Maori males and the warrior gene and the need for community warriors and helping them deal with real grief issues. And the feminist movement has done them a bad service because it doesn't understand the Maori male and his psyche and the reasons why.
Well, it just doesn't understand the male full stop. It doesn't allow for that understanding.
Yeah. So Black Ribbon, we've launched our campaign, and this will go during the spring period for the next 3 months. We'll be able to talk about it from week to week. I'll invite Murray back to talk again. That's wonderful, as a Kolmar tour, a spiritual father. Murray, thanks for coming along. And also the church needs to acknowledge the Elijah Moses Company and needs to identify tabernacles and the New Jerusalem for empowerment and real transformation. And it needs to line up with the Apostles of the Lamb, and also needs to have father mentoring programs and honour the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who's not a he, she, but a real father.
Claim the blood at the Christ, at the cross, Jack.
Claim the blood of the cross. Reconciliation. Okay, so this is from the Fringes for another week. Bye-bye. Let's all work together.